Shalom, family. Assalamu alaikum. All praises be to the Most High. I am driving, so you will hear some noise in the background, as well as I do have a tendency to struggle for words, speaking this slave language given to us from our oppressors. Anyway, family, today I want to talk about education and how these devils are actually doing their due diligence to try to erase our history. Now, it is our responsibilities as parents, I believe, that we should be teaching our kids our history, not the history of the so-called white man that's given to them in the public school system, but I'm talking about like the history, our oral laws, our oral history, you know what I'm saying? Shit that was passed down from generation to generation. Now, I do understand that many of us are brainwashed by the Europeans, right, with their religion, with their public school system, but again, it is just too much information on the internet that you can actually go and research to teach your kids. You know what I'm saying? Because these white supremacists, well, I hate that word white supremacist because nothing's supreme about these devils. They need a sunscreen lotion to be in the sun. So how can you be supreme? But anyway, they're doing their job, right? Teaching their offspring how to whitewash history. Or basically, they're doing a job for them by whitewashing history to fit their narrative, to protect them. So we have to do our due diligence to teach our kids our history, to preserve it. Now, my daughter came to me the other day, and she was telling me about one of her classes, a history class, where the teacher was pretty much trying to whitewash his history. Now, the good thing about it with me and my daughter, we have a understanding that even though she's in the public school system, you know what I'm saying, she don't have to go along to get along. She don't have to take everything that they teach her. If she have any doubts, if she have to question anything, she should come to me and I will let her know yay or nay, right? So she was telling me that her history teacher was basically talking about like the topic of Egypt or Kemet. The topic of Egypt came up, right? And someone asked the question, is Egypt in Africa? And are the Egyptians black or white? This devil had the nerve, had the audacity to lie to the student by saying Egypt is in Asia. Right? This bitch say Egypt is in Asia, not Africa. Then she said the ancient, well, she didn't say ancient, she said the Egyptians are olive color people. You know, they love that olive shit. Now, I told my daughter, I said, daughter, her name, right? I would like for you to Google olive, the color of olive, and tell me what color do you see. So she Googled olive, and when she Googled olive, the color that she seen was green and black, right? You may see a slightish, a beige, but it's mostly green and black that showed up. So I said to her, okay, have you ever seen anybody look green walking around? You know what I'm saying? Do you ever seen any green man other than a Green Lantern and shit? She said, nope. I said, have you ever seen any dark-skinned melanated people that look like the color of the black olive? She said, yep. I said, okay, so do you see any olive color, olive, like what is olive to you? Like, because she said, her teacher said, what she said, the Egyptians are olive color. So I said, do you know what olive color look like? She said, nope. I said, exactly. So what they do, family, because they can't accept the fact that mankind started out black. You know what I'm saying? We are the original man. These devils came from us. The Most High created us in his image, right? Blew the breath of life. We actually formed us from the ground, which is clay, brown clay. Blew the breath of life. That's a part of the Most High in us. And then man became a living soul. So we literally have the Most High essence, the Most High spirit in us. These devils came from us. Our people mixed with Neanderthals, right? Some creature-like beings. And they created a new species of mankind, referring to themselves as Caucasian. That they came from us. Black people could make all different shades of color of people. White people can only make one shade, and they're not even white, they're different shades of red, but they can only make one skin complexion, and that's the non-recessive gene complexion. So after explaining that to my daughter, right, She said, so I said, what happened? She said, well, at first she started to raise her hand and try to correct the teacher by telling her in Egypt they have hieroglyphics or painting on the wall that depicts the ancient Egyptian as being black. So Eve, this is what she said. She said, even though they started out black, she said, even though they may appears to be white, but they started out black. So I said, I'm glad you didn't actually engage in her, because what would happen is she would probably start picking on you. You know what I mean? And my daughter, she's kind of timid. She's non-confrontational. She's not like me. She don't have the spirit like me. She have more or less her mother's spirit. You know what I'm saying? I'm a very confrontational brother. I don't give a fuck. I would have raised my hand and be like, look, bitch, I'm going to challenge you. That's why I be telling my peoples, man. I be like, if I ever go to your church, I guarantee I will take pretty much half, if not more than half of your congregation when I start teaching them the truth. Because see, Hebrews teach, pastors preach. You know what I'm saying? It's a difference. So again, family, it is our diligence, it's our due diligence to teach our kids our history, not the so-called white man history, rendition of their history, because that's history means his story, right? His story. They're telling their story, his story. That's what history really means. So it's time for us to tell our story, because otherwise we're gonna be lost in the sauce. Our history is gonna start based on slavery. And it's so funny, family. I used to wonder like why they would actually put it out there in movies that they was wicked to the slave. Like they enslaved black people and they was so cruel towards us. I used to be like, why would they do that? But I realized why they do that. One, they're trying to show us or instill in our brains, right, in our psyche and shit, that they are dominant over us. They're the dominant race. Then, not only that, subconsciously they're trying to teach us that we began around slavery time. See, they don't want to teach us that we're royalty, that we came from priesthood. You know what I'm saying? That the first Egyptian were actually black. You know what I mean? Even if you look at this photo on the screen, you can see to the right, these are what the Egyptians would have looked like today. The original Egyptian, the Hamitic people, Hamites, right? They're black people, dark melanated people. They try to show you in Hollywood movie depicting white people being the Egyptians. Now how the fuck can a white person have been the Egyptian in slavery, right? Because according to the story, right, the ancient Hebrews were slaves under the pharaohs, under the Egyptians, who were black, but they're trying to say they was white. So you're telling me white people would have enslaved white people? Because remember, according to the story, the Egyptian enslaved the Hebrews, the Hebrews, right? Now, I'm not saying that they didn't have white slave in the past, because I believe that there's a history out there saying that they had so-called white slave, but it wasn't really slave, family. They was servant. They was servitude. They was doing servitude, and after a certain amount of period, they would be free. And not only that, they was being paid, compensated for their servitude. So the difference between slaves not being paid, hang on trees, being castrated, right? Raped and shit, burned on logs. There's a difference between that and servitude. So I want you to understand, family, that these devils are going to do everything in their power to try to whitewash history for the next generation to come. So we need to do, once again, our due diligence to try to pass on our history, our story to our people, to our kids, because they're telling you that the so-called Egyptians were white people, right? And I want y'all to continue. I want you to continue to watch this video, because I want to show y'all some photos of who they say are, first of all, the chosen people, right? And I also want to show who they say were the Egyptians. Now, I have a question to ask you, so-called white people. Be honest with me. Would you guys be able to live in Africa, in the desert, right, amongst the tribes? Because we know only black people deal with tribes, white people deal with clans. Would y'all be able to live in the desert back in ancient time, where the average degree was 115 to 130 degrees in the desert, without y'all trusty sunscreen lotion? Now I know y'all want to say, well, back then y'all used olive oil. Then why the fuck y'all not using olive oil today? You know what I mean? Are you telling me that the olive oil back then was more potent than the one today? Or are you telling me in the 70s space travel was possible, But in the 2000s and shit, space travel is not possible. So you tell me technology in the past was more advanced than it is today? Because you know they say they went to the moon, right, family, in the 70s and shit, but they never been back. So why not? But I want y'all to see the depiction of the so-called ancient Egyptian as well as the so-called ancient Hebrew. And y'all tell me who actually fit the Deuteronomy chapter 28, right? In other words, Deuteronomy chapter 68, verse 28, from the 15th verse to the 68th verse. You read that in the Bible. You tell me who actually went back into Egypt, which is synonymous with bondage, on slave ship, right? Was it so-called black people or was it so-called white people that went on ships into slavery? Did the Jewish people, calling themselves God's chosen people, calling themselves Jews, right? Did they ever went into slavery according to Deuteronomy prophecy that they was going to go into Egypt or bondage? Did any Jewish person from Europe, the Khazars, whatever you want to call them, Ashkenaz Jew, did any so-called Europeans ever went into slavery, right? Whereas they became the borrowers and not the fucking lenders. You tell me where prophecy fit these devils. You tell me. On this depiction on the screen, does this look like a European depiction? These are actual depiction of what the ancient Hebrews and what do you call it? Ancient Hebrews as well as the hold on. My bad. The ancient Hebrews as well as the ancient Egyptians would have looked like. And this is going way back. I know they went and they try to whitewash it, try to take the color out of this shit. But one thing they can't do, they cannot change the features of the so-called melanated people. We have broad nostrils, big lips, and we have different color here as well as different style with our hair. You know what I mean? So they could do all that shit that they want to do to try to change the depiction of the ancient Egyptian as well as the ancient Hebrews, but it ain't gonna work. You know what I mean? These devils only been around 6,000 years, or probably younger than that. They're the youngest race on this planet. The reason why they dominate the planet is because these are some warrior-like, savage-like fucking beings. You know what I'm saying? They go into the worldwide, and they take over by brute force. Melanated people by nature, we're docile people. We are not warmongers. We don't create weapons of mass destruction. We don't create bombs and nuclear weapons and guns and shit like that. You name one African country that has nuclear weapon. You name one African country. These devils right here calling themselves the chosen people, they have what is called the Iron Dome, right? They have a missile defense system. If they're God's chosen people, why do they need weapons of mass destruction? Why do they need missile defense system? You know what I'm saying? If they're God's chosen people, they're supposed to just be able to live without, protection from with nukes and shit, or they should be able to go into the sun without worrying about getting sunburned, because they're God chosen people. How is it that melanated people have the beautiful dark skin complexion that protects them from the sun, and God chosen people don't have that? You know what I'm saying? Wouldn't it make more sense that we are the Most High chosen people, and because of the disobedience of the Most High, lost as a commandment, we are under the Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15 to 68 curses? You know what I'm saying? These agents of the devil, so-called Christian pastors, are lying to us, family. They're working on behalf of the so-called white man to take away our history, to keep us dumbed down. You know what I mean? It's time for us to wake up and realize that we are the original man. These devils could have never survived in the desert like this man is surviving without his sunscreen lotion. Shalom.